Forum. So this is the regular meeting, February 8th. Oh, that's the minutes. Whoa, where did that come from? I got it. All right, the regular regular meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. We're meeting in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, Mass. It's Thursday, March 14th, 2024. This is the call to order. So if anybody is going to record or do sound on this meeting, be advised that the town has already taken care of that. And please inform the chair if it does happen. Okay, regular meeting minutes. Welcome. Let's go to public comment first. Welcome guests. Any public comment?
Thanks.
No, she's an agenda item.
Well,
Is there any public comment?
you're gonna cover, right? The
And move on.
Hearing none, moving on. Minutes, CPC minutes, February 8th, 2024. Is there a motion?
I have an amendment.
Go ahead, well, let's get a motion to approve first.
No,
She can put the amendment in first?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Kelly.
So towards the very end of the minutes, I just had a correction or clarification. So under the update for social media, the first bullet says Kelly posted on the library Facebook page, and I did not directly post it. I shared with the director at the library who posted it on their Facebook page.
Okay. With that, is there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, new business. Possible project for 2025 CPA funding requests. Carolyn Warner. Carolyn, you have the floor.
Thank you. That is my maiden name. My name's Carolyn Burnett.
That's what I have in front of me, I'm sorry.
No, that's
My
okay.
apologies.
I haven't changed my email.
She needs to go to, she needs to go to a podium.
Yeah, would you go to the podium and speak, please?
Yes, thank you. Okay.
We've already met.
Yes, Mr. Nixon. Thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Carolyn Burnett, and I was coming here, hoping to come here this evening just to formally loop Harwich into an initiative that did originate in Yarmouth, Mary. But we, as a group, are looking to regionalize a potential project, which contingent on if it would be outdoor or indoor. The actual facility could be potentially funded with CPC dollars. So this idea is for an aquatic facility. And I'm a bit of a visual learner myself, and frankly, there's been probably about a year of research that's gone into this project. So we did put together a short little video. It's 5 minutes. If we could play that, it might be a good starting point. And then, I don't know, I'm mindful of the timing for funding and that it's not really the most appropriate time to coming to you all with an application. However, we do have pending applications in front of the town of Yarmouth and in front of the town of Dennis. So just wanted to be here to make this, the town of Harwich, like I said, part of this potential project. The first step would be a feasibility study that we're looking to fund. And the CPC, as you know, it's a restricted funding source that if the public or the community were to say we want an indoor facility, certainly CPC would not be an appropriate funding source. However, for just the feasibility study itself, it could qualify under that administrative, the 5% admin. So I think that's enough for me. Is that a good place to stop? Or
Go ahead.
so if we could show the video, and then I brought with me for Mr. Chairman, David, I brought with you just 3 different quotes that we do have from 3 different engineering firms that we're ultimately looking to, kind of as soon as possible, fund. So it would be, again, perhaps our own initiative to privately fund some of this study, and then we're hoping to have complement that with, again, Yarmouth, Dennis, Harwich. We are going to Chatham. And I guess the thing to mention, which is interesting, I didn't know this until I started being in the trenches of it, is every town has its own funding cycle. You guys probably know that since you're in the trenches of CPC, but like Dennis has an application due sooner than later. And I know that it wouldn't be until the fall that, based on when your annual meeting is, or how many,
It'll be October 2nd,
right,
and then the applications are all competitive.
right.
There's nothing that precludes you from coming and speaking tonight.
Right. So to that point, I'm gonna be quiet and we'll play this video, and then I think as a starting place, that will probably be sufficient unless there are any questions. I'm
That's
happy to, yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
It'll be a little bit quiet, but.
There's music, it's just for,
Background.
And the money boat was won, as we say
Okay. You got me with the mamas and the papas.
So can you just help us with sort of the process and procedure? What's next? What would we, as an organization, do to come before Harwich CPC?
Well, again, in October,
Yeah.
you can go online, fill out an application. All the information that we're gonna need will be on that application. And when the board reviews it, there may be additional questions. So we'll set up a time for you to come in and make your presentation.
And how do we know what portion of what it is do we come right in immediately and say, we need $15 million, please? You know,
I'm not writing the application.
Okay.
You folks are.
all right.
So you have to use your discretion how you choose to attack this particular project.
Well, yeah, and that's, it would be, I wanted to give this.
Come up to the mic.
The first step is absolutely, I mean, we know this from other nonprofits on the Cape that are actually currently in the process of building other facilities, but the first step is to fund a feasibility study. So that's what, in this packet, ultimately, we would include this in the application, but we want to fund first the feasibility study. And there, like I said, there are 3 different quotes. The one I think that anyways, but this would be something that accompanies the application in October. And I think the probably most important thing is just to mention that as a regionalized project, that it would be a little bit like a puzzle to wait and hear from Yarmouth if this would be something that would pass through town meeting in Yarmouth, something that would pass through town meeting in Dennis, as to whether or not the cost would be divisible. Ultimately, we're hoping by fifths, so we could say, okay, if each town were to contribute, you know, a fifth of the study, then it would be, that's what we're hoping to do.
It's an extensive undertaking, that's for sure. Mary?
So has Yarmouth CPC actually approved funding to go forward to town meeting? Because my understanding was they hadn't.
Oh, no, we have an application pending with them. No,
So but this cycle's over with, so.
It
you
is.
know, So town meeting
so we're.
is in April, so you don't have an active article on town meeting floor for this,
Correct.
for April.
No, it would be hopefully in the fall. We've met with them, I mean, at least, I think, 4 or 5 times, but we're meeting with them on the 24th of April.
So do you have a location that you're intending to build it? Do you have land?
That would be something that the feasibility study would ultimately help to address. The town of Harwich, interestingly enough, is, the town of Harwich was a town that was identified by another nonprofit when they did a community needs assessment back in 2017. So from Yarmouth, say, eastward are the towns that we're presenting to, hoping to have support. But
Right, but you don't have a location in mind yet that has administration or rec department?
Rec department review, we had a unit presented to us. That's the way I'm gonna frame that. And, we found it interesting. There were a lot of questions, and there was I don't think there was a vote of approval. It was just an informational,
I mean,
as this is now.
to me, this still sounds very premature for an application. Just trying to be upfront with you, Carolyn, because, you know, we only have so much in available administrative funds every year.
Right.
And I'm not sure that a feasibility study, not knowing where it's going to be, are you proposing that it's going to be run by a town? Are you proposing that there's going to, if four towns are supposed to be involved in it, does that mean there's an intermunicipal agreement that's going to have to be created amongst the 4 towns? Does that mean the nonprofit's going to run it? Is the nonprofit going to buy it? Is the nonprofit going to lease land? And who's going to do the building and the management? There's a lot involved in managing an aquatic facility. So is the nonprofit gonna fund that? Is that gonna be
These are-
put on the town? So, to me, those are all,
Salary and wages.
These
those are all, right, but those are all questions that I think, I understand you're looking at a feasibility study, but to me, that's pre-feasibility study questions so that you can drill down on, I mean, if you're talking a feasibility study for where, how, why, what, when, you're talking about a lot of money for a feasibility study, not a, a traditional $25,000 that's gonna, kind of give you a plan. So just trying to be upfront, I don't know that you're quite there yet, and there's a lot of work between now and October to get you ready for that.
Yeah.
So just wanted to be upfront, 'cause I know you've talked to a lot of different people in Yarmouth, but I don't think the rec commission has agreed to be a part of something yet, and I know you still have, you've got an application in Yarmouth, but they haven't yet approved funding, so there's a lot of wheels still
Yeah,
spinning, so.
Mary, no, you're absolutely right. This has been a lot of work to get up
Yeah.
even to this point, a lot of logistics. And with all respect, as a lawyer yourself, some of these questions and flowing through, what needs to happen first, the acquisition of land, the ownership of the facility, who would manage the facility, all of these questions are absolutely relevant. We know that Chatham, just last year, funded a feasibility study from the town for the swim club there. One of the firms that we got a quote from, of course, is that one, Bergman, Hendry and Archetype, which is actually the same firm that Mr. Rittenauer, the TA in Yarmouth, suggested to me. So these aren't firms that are, we did our research to even choose which 3 firms we wanted to have quotes from. And we do have a couple of interesting potential locations that we would be providing to these
Okay.
firms, that then they would do the diligence to say there are several different variables as to traffic flow,
Right.
The building itself, what might be the most viable option. So from the end point, thinking of who would manage it, is this a town-owned facility, is it a privately owned
Right.
facility? All of those are absolutely great questions to ask, but is it too soon to fund a feasibility study? I don't think so, because this would be homework. It would be ultimately a document that could be handed over to whomever would be the owner of the said facility.
My only concern with that, Carolyn, is that there are a lot of differences between a nonprofit running a facility versus a municipality running a facility, or multiple municipalities joining in one joint facility on multiple locations. So that's just where I'm coming from in that respect. I mean, I know you've been doing this for quite a while at this point, so I just want to put those out there up front, that those are some hurdles that I would have when I was looking at an application.
Thank you.
They make a difference to us, as far as tax dollars and how it's going to get funded into a municipal budget and things like that.
Right. So this would be, ultimately for now, we're just kind of the advocacy group that's looking to bring together and unite individual efforts that have been made historically over the past 10 years even. In Dennis, there was a gentleman that spent quite some time and energy and frankly money to have a municipal-owned facility at the senior center there. Last year, 2 years ago, in Harwich, there were 2 women who did the same thing, put quite a lot of effort into regionalizing a project that would, so we just thought strategically perhaps a nonprofit would be a vehicle that could more or less just offer some organizational group to say, let's work together and try and get to an end point.
Yeah. From my perspective, it's just raising some questions so that as you're preparing an application, those are some things that you would probably want to know ahead of time. They're not things that you're going to, on the fly, know after if you haven't thought about them ahead of time, you're not going to have the answer for them during the application process. So that's my only reason for raising them for you.
No, thank you. We were excited to even to have the responsiveness from, I don't know if you follow this or if you, for as much as you work, I don't know if you've read, like, but that Chatham was responsive to say, okay, that the select board was interested in, let's see, like, what demand in the community. Again, that's what this study would do, is to give us on our own, it was mentioned in the presentation, but we have about 200 survey respondents with some pretty fascinating testimonials of where parents and everyone in between, parents and seniors are going to swim right now, year-round. So we're just looking to have that population expanded from, a 200 count of 200 is not a large enough sector of data.
Right.
We want to say we have 2,000 or 20,000 people that have responded, and maybe 19 of those 1,000 don't want a facility, but we want to be able to have numbers to help quantify the analysis that we've done so far.
All said, Mayor?
All said, David, thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, just a clarification on, administrative funds have been mentioned here. Is this something that has to come out of administrative funds if we fund it, or can it be a separate article for the feasibility study?
I'm not really sure on an
You're
open
so
space.
deep into this that I don't know the answer to that question.
For recreation facility, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause we
Depending
know
on where
that
it
would
is,
be
I'm
a
not
separate-
sure.
We
Right.
can't put money to do a study of an historic district, right?
Right.
And I
That's
didn't know
true.
whether this kind of comes along the same line.
It seems to,
Or
yeah.
whether you can't do an article, but you could use some of your administrative funds towards it, which, because we have a reserve that we vote every year. And I would assume if that came out of, it was legally possible, we could allocate money sooner out of our administrative funds, if that's legitimate. I don't know, that's why I'm just bringing up the question.
Yeah, I think our admin funds get zeroed out every year, is that what
Yeah,
we're
they
now
do.
told?
Yeah.
So,
It does now. Didn't before, but it does
Right.
now.
I don't know the answer to the question
Okay.
off the top of my head. I mean, I'd have to
Maybe
look at it
that's a
more.
question that should go to the state
I-
organization, just to
I'll
see.
make that inquiry.
Okay.
I have been in touch with the coalition,
Yeah.
just because it's a fascinating, it was a
Yeah.
learning process for me. I happen to be pretty familiar with the 3% that we all pay into this fund. But to learn further specifications of what it could be used for, a feasibility study or not, it's really interesting how many different case studies are out there that kind of like you're studying law, that it's like, one case determines X is a conclusion for, but as to what constitutes a recreational facility, if it's outdoors, again, off-Cape people have funded outdoor pools exclusively, 100% with ZPC dollars. But as soon as you start to put any sort of walls on the facility, even if, I tried to say, even if it's a garage-looking door, like a glass enclosure that looks very much like the outdoors, or feels like the outdoors, as soon as you put any sort of walls on it, then it moves into an indoor facility, which wouldn't be appropriate for this fund. But they really leave it ultimately up to the town CPC, and that they're cautious to say, it's up to you all, because quite frankly, it could be a lawsuit that the taxpayers,
Yeah, well, we would take guidance from town council on that,
right,
you know,
yeah.
ultimately,
But,
Thank
but,
you.
if it comes to it.
but it's interesting, the project.
Have you looked at Chatham? They have a facility there they closed.
It's gonna be a coffee shop. You'll be able to go there for a cup of coffee, sit where the pool was, and look up and pretend that you're in like a museum, or, I don't know, an inset,
Okay.
And chocolate too, coffee and chocolate.
yeah. But like I said, the firm that did that feasibility study is one of the same firms that we got a quote from. But,
So you're open to questions as this progresses along and see where we're at.
Well, any questions from the board right now, first of all? Hearing none. I would highly suggest that This is a staggering project for the town of Harwich to get involved in. I can tell you that much.
Oh, yeah.
The numbers are gonna be off the Richter scale. So, start with the application for the CPC. We can't, I don't have the expertise to guide you in something like this. I don't know if any of the board members that aren't here have that expertise. There's a lot of questions I have, and this is just an opening
Yeah.
informational, so, start with the application and see where it goes from there. Kelly?
I don't have a question, just a comment, but on the CPC website, you can see the applications that were submitted this year, and you can get more information on the process. You can see any of our meetings and what questions we've had and what's been discussed and what has kind of contributed to us supporting a project or being more hesitant on a project, so that can help to guide you in the process.
No, of course, we've used that as a reference, thank you.
Great.
I am curious, just knowing perhaps other projects that have been intertown or, more than one town, would it ever be appropriate to ask any one of you all, like if one CPC person from each town would be interested in, like, just to make sure that, the efficiency of communication and as this moves along?
You could make that request, understanding that everybody at this board is a volunteer. So, send that request through an email, and at the next meeting, I'll make an inquiry to the board.
Okay.
Is that fair enough?
Oh, yeah, it just, I'm just thinking from, you know what I mean, from my perspective,
Understood.
going from one town to another, like if we are making progress in one town, or if one town seems more receptive to say, yes, let's do this, or yes, we are gonna fund it, then it might be helpful to have communication with another town, I don't
So
know.
send,
I
Go
just
ahead.
think you communicate through the chair
Okay,
to the board, because, we don't have any authority separate and apart from sitting at a meeting. So,
okay,
I think if you just, keep the chair informed, it will go on an agenda and we'll just know where you're standing with
Okay.
stuff. I think that's the safest way to do it, because otherwise, somebody's not around, somebody misses a meeting, it's
No,
the
that
person you're communicating with, nobody's gonna know,
okay.
so.
So if there is any,
and some of this falls under some of our bailiwicks and others don't. So, that's a good idea,
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you.
go through the chair, it's easier.
and
Yep, Jan can
Send-
put it on an agenda
Yeah.
and just send the communications through.
I will do exactly that.
if there is any interest from anyone here, we're gonna meet next week just to rally the troops.
You're all invited to come to O'Shea's.
Sunday, the 24th, get something to eat, learn more about us.
What we're up to, what we're trying to do.
O'Shea's, is there a corned beef sandwich involved? Thank you.
I think you have two there, right?
Bob?
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Sharing your, you have two.
I do
Carolyn,
have
Take mine.
is that the video that you ran, is it something that I can
Print slides on.
be on a PDF and post on the website when we do our minutes or not? As a report, we've had other presentations, PowerPoint presentations, that we can put online if I have it in a PDF form.
Okay, you'd like it in a PDF form?
Yeah.
Sure.
That's, I don't know what else they can
Exposure.
use.
It gets
I'm
incor-
just,
Again, to the chair, or to you personally, which would you prefer?
I don't do anything. I give it to the town. And I've only given them PDFs. I don't think I've given them
Send it to the
reports other way.
CPC website.
Yeah, the same, and
Same
then
email.
he'll give it to me.
And Mary, you're gonna help me, volunteer. You're gonna volunteer your legal expert to help push this along.
She's nodding, yes.
Sorry, no. She's nodding no. She's nodding no.
Maybe a consulting fee involved?
No.
Consulting fee is
No.
fine.
I don't participate in things that I would vote on.
Oh,
No, I was wondering if
Yeah.
there was a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I really can't. In either place. Because it would be a conflict under the state conflict rules.
okay, you folks all set?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, appreciate it.
Good luck.
Okay, we have to make a decision on B,
Like
the
paths.
bikeway, the Article 30, for $13,000. We've had a discussion, a long, intense discussion, about what the recommendation from Highway was. And they asked to withdraw it. So Bikeways isn't here, they've had plenty of opportunity to come and say or speak to this particular article. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I'm from the Bikeways.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Identify yourself?
Charles Walkley. I'll just present what I think
Go
you're
ahead,
asking.
Pat.
I'm not
That's fine.
100% sure, but I think you're wondering why we would give the money back after we went through so much work to get it and all of your hard work to prove it. So once it was accepted by town meeting, someplace in the fall, Link Hooper was contacted by the state, and they informed him that there would be a resurfacing of the rail trail within the next couple of years. There were no firm dates, but they were running studies, and it's a very serious undertaking. And as part of that, they would seek to rectify some of the crossings where they come at odd angles and improve sight lines and whatnot. So looking at that with installing this particular lighting system, if that, and most probably that will be changed, that system may not be appropriate for what the new access in crossing, Oak Street. So we felt like it would be not in the best interest of anybody to install that for a short period of time. And who knows what it's going to require once it's all done. So we didn't feel it would be appropriate to hang on to the funding because we're not really using it, and it might be a change project anyway. So we felt the best course at that particular time would be to just return the money and come back later.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Members of the board, any questions? Okay,
If that's the pleasure of the Bikeways Committee, then I would move that we vote to rescind the $13,000 from 2023 town meeting Article 30. I believe that was an annual town meeting. At this time.
23, yep, Article 30, yep, for $13,000. Second, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate getting the money back.
Well, I just have a quick question, because I wasn't aware that we were asked several times to come to the meeting, because I would come to whatever meeting you would like me to come to. I didn't know, I don't know the source of that, whether it could have gotten sent to another member and whatnot.
That's fine.
I don't know
That's fine.
that, but I want you to know that we're not resistant to come speak with
Right,
you.
right. Well, now that you've identified yourself, we know where you are.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We send the information to the contact on the application. Frank.
Okay, next, possible review of the CPA funding, discussion of the voting on the CPA request.
CH2.
CH2. Okay. The rental assistance program. I'm gonna put that on the floor, and Mr. Valentine, you've come to discuss that with us.
I did. I didn't want to rush to the phone because last time I kept rushing to the microphone and getting myself in trouble. As you know, last time I was here, I promised to get what information I could. I think on the rental assistance program, I think he had two broad questions. One was, how's it going to be managed? And the second question was, what's it going to cost to handle the fees? And so I spent a fair amount of time contacting our neighboring towns. I sent you a lot of information. I'm a little nervous because you know the expression, you can't dazzle them with brilliance, bury them in something else. But I did want to give you the information I had. And what I found out is that the towns that I listed here, Wellfleet, Eastham, Orleans, and Brewster, for instance, all have rental assistance programs going on. They all have hired outside consultants to manage that. The excuse me, Wellfleet, well, a couple of them have hired the Homeless Prevention Council, and some others have hired the Housing Assistance Corporation. And what I did want to discuss with you is that I found the fees charged were disparate by quite a bit. The HAC, their fee in one of the RFPs I got, I think from Brewster, was planning on paying them a 5% fee. The Homeless Prevention Council charged $125 per family per month. In case you add all that up, and it turns out to be more like a 25% fee, so that's a large difference. Now, I did follow up with a couple of the Homeless Prevention Council, and their fee is much larger because they're very proud, that's probably the wrong term. They spend a lot of effort on what they call case social support. And I can list those to you, but it's helping the tenant figure out what their financial needs are, support for moving out of that situation so they can afford the rent after their 1, 2, 3 year period. So that whole myriad of support. I followed up some with the HAC, and they, by the way, wouldn't give me a estimate of the fee until we actually submitted an RFP. But we're small towns in Cape Cod, because I got from the other town of what their fee was paid. They don't provide that same type of support, apparently, if I'm right, themselves. They do direct the renters to outside groups that provide that, encourage them to seek help if they need financial help. The point I'm making is that there are groups out there that do that, and they both towns have used them. They do it well. Going forward, we'd have to wait and find out what the exact administration fee is after we issue an RFP, and then make a judgment of how comfortable we are with the case support they provide. As you know, our town housing advocate, has been on maternity leave. She's working several days a week now. She'll soon be ready to help minister this project, and if it's approved, and go, well, it won't be till this summer anyway, but to start issuing with the town support, issuing RFPs and go after the rental assistance program. Things I said before, we're trying to look at all avenues to help in renter and in housing for affordable housing. I see this as just another arrow in the quiver, if you will. I was at a Zoom meeting Tuesday of a housing group, and I learned that Brewster has this program going, and comment was made that the amount of requests have doubled in the last year. I have been in discussion and have talked to Liz Harder from the Housing Committee, and they had some activity in the past. They let it drop this time because that committee wasn't active for the last year or so, as you probably know. They've reinstituted, but they're not in a position to to move forward with a program of this type now. So that's and I'm willing to take any questions to answer what I can. Mary, I think.
So the Housing Authority does have a rental assistance program that we fund.
Right.
I don't know I don't recall the last update that we got from them, but the last, they haven't come back for additional money because they weren't able to help people, so they weren't getting applicants. So their project, I know, was, they always took the position in the past that they had to have funding for a full 3 years for a participant. It was one shot. They got 3 years worth of assistance. And the last couple of times they've come before us, the comment has been that they haven't been able to help anybody because they didn't have enough. There wasn't enough in there for them to actually assist people into the apartments or into the rental situations, because the rents were still too high.
Yeah.
So their $300 a month or their $500 a month wasn't enough. So I guess, has there been any discussion, is there any notion of how much that's gonna be per family or per unit or per?
Well,
Any
two
of it?
comments on that. I remember those same discussions with my previous role, the
Right.
housing assistance, and that the sense was at the time that they didn't market it very well because they weren't applicants. And that's one of the things that both the homeless group, homeless prevention, part of what their administrative fee is to get it out there and advertise it. The second part of that is just looking at what other towns have done. They've been looking at more of, say, $750 to $1,000 range to give a little more support for 1 year. I think all of them have been for 1 year, and then renewable for up to 3 years.
Yeah.
But they have increased the amount of fees, because that's right. Right now, it gets worse all the time between the rent. But they've tried to address that. I'm not sure how. They are getting applicants where they've gotten out there, but I don't know. I've answered your question, but.
So I'm still a little confused with the Housing Authority's program, I'll be honest, because I had discussions with Elizabeth Harder on a couple of occasions, and I don't recall whether it was, at one point, they thought maybe it was a selectmen's program that they were administering on behalf of the town. I'm not sure whether it's that or whether it's run by the Housing Authority, so I'm not sure whether that number, like the amount that they were providing as a subsidy, was a fixed number and couldn't be changed. But if the notion is that you could provide more of assistance to get somebody in, 1,000 versus 300, I guess.
Are you all set, Mary?
Yeah, I still
Just
struggling with
because
numbers.
I remember very clearly, we had asked that of them because the reason was 300 is not enough. We still didn't. But they seemed to be locked into that with their charter or something, that it was 300. And I don't know why they couldn't change it or whatever, but they weren't able to. And maybe it's because of that 3-year commitment. So they may had 3 slots open, but they weren't allowed to combine where something only have one. But I know it was the 300 was a cap, was the most they could do.
So I guess that's kind of where my questioning comes in, is whether there is a cap that's going to change it from 80% to, 100% versus.
I
So
think
that's where I'm struggling.
I don't, as far as my understanding is, and the housing authorities always confuse me as well. The housing committee, I think, have come back with a great group, and we're trying to work together and do that. I'm not aware of a cap on the total amount. Now, if you read the documents that I've put together from the other towns, there are application requirements that they're paying more than 30% of their income, because that's what the baseline is that you're not supposed to pay on. So they put that criteria in the application for renters that apply, and the percent of it, I think they all have 100% of the AMI that they can look to. So there's that type of criteria. But I haven't seen an example, at least looking at other towns, where they've capped the amount per month. you know, because it's ranged from towns. I think it's ranged, I see it from like $750 to maybe $1,000. I don't think we have that restriction.
Yeah,
Robert?
that's my understanding is that if they're over 30%, will make up the difference.
Okay.
To get to the amount.
To bring them down to the 30%, whatever it is.
Bring them down to 30%, but also the rent has to fall within the guidelines too, as far as, it can't be an exorbitant rent.
It can't be a 3,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Dollar a month rent.
So there's a reasonability that you gotta judge both on
Gotcha.
that.
And that's where the other RFPs have gone out with those requirements in the application. But I think I may have one of the I mean, I gave you too much to read. I apologize for that, but I think one of them may have that.
That was a strategy.
Well, David, I was going to summarize it, and I figured, well, if I summarize, I'm going to screw it up. So
Just curious, that $1,000 a month, like say in Brewster, if they're giving them $1,100 a month, is that going towards like a four-family, or is it like a four?
it varies what they've given for size of family, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
So I don't have a.
Okay,
And there's a.
all right,
If I think there's maybe a table. One of those had a table in there. If not,
all right.
I'll look and get it again.
It's the HUD table.
It is the HUD table,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah. So it's per family unit.
Emily,
It's spelled out.
any questions?
No, I'm just reading. I'm going back and looking at the table and reading through it. Thank you. Not right now.
That's no fair. You actually want to know what's there.
Kelly?
I don't have any questions, just a comment still about the project. Larry, thank you so much for all the time that you put in and sharing all of this with us. Looking at the project itself still, though, I still feel like it's an incomplete application because we still don't have a plan based off of this information, so I wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward with this. I just wanted to be frank about that. But it's great source material, so thank you so much for all that you went in to share it with us. That's my comment.
I don't have a response to that, except I didn't feel, the feedback I was getting, it's going to be hard to finalize the plan until you actually go out with some RFPs and get responses. So,
You said something earlier that struck me, and I'm trying to, I can't paraphrase what you said. You talked about going out or doing your due diligence to hire a company or something to that effect, but you wouldn't know what to find, you wouldn't be comfortable, but over a period of time, you would look for results from it to see how it went? Is that,
well, of course, we'd monitor, because it's inherent in all the other towns. Even though they can go up to 3 years, they go 1 year at a time to monitor it, to see how it's going. So everyone, the response, when I read the information I got, every town is careful not to get ahead of their skis, if you will, in terms of what they go out for.
well, and essentially, that's what's bothering me, because at 25% as a fee?
Well, my initial discussions.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and my initial discussions with Brianna, and she's been calling around that for us to go beyond the hack fee of 5% would take a lot of convincing. So because we don't see it, but I wanted to give you all the, what was out there. Because I don't see why we would do that at the moment.
Larry, I'm a layperson when it comes to this information.
Well, me too,
Trying
actually.
to-
I'm trying to learn as I go, unfortunately.
Yeah. Mary?
So just a question for me, because I simply don't know the answer to the question. When you're talking about them, hack managing the program, is that limited to, are they finding the units and matching them up with applicants, or is that them just processing applicants that have found their own unit and seeing whether they qualify? Are they coordinating the health inspections and the certificates and doing all of that, or is some of that still being done in-house?
That's a question.
That is a good question, and one I'm going to have to speculate on, because I think at the moment, when I ask at least internally, I think
Yeah.
we'd want them to do all that, because we don't have the internal resources nor the expertise to, quote, manage the program in its, to its full extent.
And
And we're not in
that-
that business. I don't think we'd ever be there.
Yeah, and I just don't know what each of those programs is doing, so,
Yeah.
because I simply don't know, so.
Right.
You know, because when I think about it, I think, you know, there are rental certificates, there's health inspections, there's,
All that.
you know, the working with the applicants,
Yeah.
I get, but then, you know, who's dealing with the pool of,
I don't know the extent. I only know what I've sent you, and it looks like what I sent you is that they've relied on these companies to do it all. You know, turnkey operation.
okay.
Any other questions from Robert?
I don't have a question, just comment.
Go ahead.
I mean, I still am concerned about passing this by because it puts a full year behind on doing this project. And I mean, I think we all talk about it, leap of faith, and, you know, but, you know, this is, you know.
You're a cruel man, Robert.
But, I mean, we have someone, you know, on staff now, full-time, that, you know, his job is to work on these type projects. It's not like we don't have anybody, we're just kind of coming up with a concept. I think it is thought out as far as being able to do a project or being able to offer a program. Other towns are doing it. We follow their examples that maybe do a little slightly, but you got to get it started. And I think this is a good time to get started and to proceed with the funding for this year.
Mary?
The hard part for me is not knowing what that management fee is gonna be out of that 250. And that's where I'm having a hard time, and I don't think anybody's gonna know until an RFP comes out. And, you know, if you only get the Homeless Prevention Council that responds at 25% and you don't get a hack because they're too busy or they don't have the bandwidth, and so you're not going to get the 5%, that just concerns me a little bit. That's a lot of money, that's a lot of money going to a management fee versus.
Let me ask you two board members, shouldn't we have that information now to make a reasonable decision?
The question, my concern is
No,
that.
no, answer my question first.
What's that?
Shouldn't we have the information that we just discussed now to make a reasonable determination?
No, not necessarily,
Okay,
because
go ahead.
this is the job of the administrator to do that. You're asking to go out for RFPs before we even have any money, any promises of money. Now, maybe the town administration will say, oh, okay, we'll write up RFPs, even though it's not gonna go anywhere until future funding. But we know that's gonna be part of the process. And don't forget, well, that's right, I don't know if we can have the clawback of the money or not. You know, if it doesn't get spent.
We can,
We go back.
certainly.
What's that?
I mean, certainly we can give money back. We've already proved that.
No, but in this particular case, whether we can claw back the money if it turns out that it's not, you know, it's not working, the program's not working, or they can't get it off the ground.
In a perfect world, sorry, I'll shut up.
No,
In a
go ahead,
perfect-
you got the
In a
floor.
perfect world, it would be great to have the RFP ahead of time. That being said, there are plenty of projects that come before us and we get an estimate and then the RFP comes afterwards and things get adjusted at the end. So it's not the first project that would have come before us without an RFP. My concern is in this circumstance that that could be a wide-ranging number for funding.
Just a comment on the prevention, it actually, I think it has more to do with the size of your funding and how many you do, because it's like a fixed cost than a per cost.
Could be, right.
So the bigger your program, the less percentages of done.
It does come down.
And I get that, but
correct.
you don't know until the potential bids come back, so, and that's what's bothering me with it.
Hold on, Emily.
No, similar thought process going through my head. What I'm thinking about is if worst case scenario, it is in the 20 to 25% range, are we comfortable with that? And like, are there any restrictions in place to say if the, or recourse in place to say if it comes back and it's 50%, that the project doesn't go forward?
That's not what we have in front of us.
Let me just answer one question. As far as I can tell, even the email I got from Hack was very anxious to bid on an RFP. There's no indication at all that they aren't, I would say it in a positive way. They're very interested in responding to an RFP. They didn't want to give a firm number until they saw the RFP. But they do have 2 other towns where they've stuck to 5%.
One comment, I just have one comment. So, I mean, traditionally, the money that we send over to the trust has the power and authority to decide how to spend it. The only reason we're really talking about it is because they presented it as a rental assistance program. So, this is what's, I mean, I'd almost say just give them more money than the 500 and let them spend the money the way they see fit. That being said, that's not how it was presented to us, so, yeah, that's where I'm having.
Little problem with that is that the trust currently can only do 80% AMI top.
But they still can only do,
I know, but these programs are all, I think, at least 100%.
Well, let me clarify that a little bit, because that did come to the trust as a first discussion, and hopefully you support me on this, Brendan, but it did come back, and decision was that was better placed with the housing advocate outside of the trust. I'm here defending it because he was not here right now.
so this is really, so it's really a town application, not a trust application?
Right.
Okay.
Any
And never
other
mind what I
comments?
just said.
It's-
I'm sorry, but it gets confusing because I'm,
Never mind.
because when I was here last time, it looked like it.
Agreed.
It was failing, and I wanted to support, the information, because I think it's a program that I'd hate to wait any longer. We're, as a side comment, as a trust, we've had some success. We're going to get an RFP is going to be issued in a couple weeks on the 456 Queen Anne Road. But now we're talking about, are there other things we could do as a trust? Tax credits, rehabilitation programs. We're trying to do as much as we can to help the housing, because it's really what's bugging us all. But that's where this is. So I'm sorry for the confusion, Mary.
There's no confusion there. You're going right for the heartstring. I understand what you're doing.
David.
And that's tough with David, because he has no heart.
Well, that's recorded, great. So where I'm really struggling with this is like we have a lot of, we have questions about financials, but nothing. The application to me is based off of intent to like make and launch a program that's based off of these towns, but I'm not understanding what prevented us from getting a draft of what that could look like. I understand that there's some shortfalls where we aren't able to get like certain quotes without an RFP, but I don't understand why we don't really have anything to go off in front of us of a plan in general. We have all these sources and that's great, but that's where I feel like I can't do my due diligence on this board when I don't have anything in writing to go off of for a plan.
I don't want to admit to doing this, but it's not been beyond us to basically cut and paste to get applications out from what other towns have done to save time and money. And that's probably what we'd do. A lot of this would be using those as an example going forward. But
Right, so
I can't, we didn't do that.
If that had been in front of us at the beginning of this application,
Right.
maybe that would have
help,
been
yeah.
helpful, but it's hard to go off of intent.
Right.
And, yeah, that's where I'm really
Yeah,
struggling.
fair enough.
in case it needs to be said, I really want to support, but this is what I need in order to feel like I'm doing my due diligence.
Robert?
So, just to say, looking back at the actual application, it says that the Wellfleet Rental Assistance Program, which was included in the application, which I intend to replicate with the updated figures, and then the Harwich housing profile, that's part of that. So, basically, they said the plan is the Wellfleet plan. Now,
Yeah.
you could have probably just substitute, find and replace Wellfleet and Harwich, and you would have had a Harwich plan,
Yep.
so.
Kelly, go ahead.
Personally, I'd rather see that instead of seeing the words "I intend to."
Okay.
That's where I'm stuck.
Anything else from the board?
I'm struggling. I'm leaning more towards Kelly's direction, despite the fact that I really want to vote for it, because sometimes the devil is in the details, and I just feel like I need a little more at this point, but have we ever done an application at fall town meeting within the current fiscal
No.
year?
No. That's a possibility.
So I'm
Say that again, if you don't mind.
We have a fall town
whether we've
meeting.
ever presented one at fall town meeting, so.
It could be a standalone. It doesn't,
It would still be this round of funding.
A long time ago, special town meeting.
okay, fair enough.
It would still be this round of funding. It's
Right.
still this application.
Yeah, it's in within the,
Just wondering, it would save 6 months. I don't know how everybody would feel about it, and I wouldn't,
if there's a fall town meeting.
there's gonna be a fall town meeting this year. There will be, I'm sure. But that being said, to your point, if and when, is it a possibility? I raise that as a possibility.
Robert?
Jan, it had been done in the past,
Long time.
well,
Yeah,
I mean, if it's,
Funding
I know in
for
Yarmouth, we do them,
reference.
Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
times during the,
because you have planned, and other towns do that, if they have a regular fall meeting, they
Yep.
split them.
I mean, it was like a long time ago.
okay.
for
Anything
thought.
else from any of the board members? And it calls for a vote.
Special town meeting.
So,
well, I don't think it does call for a vote if it's, there's nothing, we don't have to
Hold
vote.
on,
we
hold
don't-
on.
2010.
I didn't understand what you said.
We don't, if we're, it's
gonna
up to the
hold
board
off.
if somebody wants to make a motion.
uh,
So
the-
hold-
the motion would be to rescind our decision, because we have made the decision not to fund it, right?
We didn't make a decision, we didn't make a motion. I don't think we made a
Yeah.
positive motion for it, did we?
No,
Did you?
I made a positive motion, and you
Yeah.
seconded it,
Yeah,
and then, but it was voted down.
Right.
okay.
Right.
So I would think the only way to do it now would be to rescind that motion, or that vote, at this point.
Okay?
But the problem is that just rescinding it, and if we voted to rescind, well, if we vote to rescind it, it doesn't mean we're voting for it. It just means it's still on the table for the fall
Now we're
meeting.
into semantics.
No, I think Bob's right, but I also think
Or we don't need to do anything.
I don't know that we need to rescind our vote yet if there's,
You wanna say
If there's thought about bringing it to the fall.
I'm not,
something? Let me ask.
are there 3 votes in favor? I mean, I'm not in,
Reconsider
Hey,
the
ask,
vote,
yeah.
not
That's
rescind.
straw.
Isn't it
right,
reconsider?
so,
Maybe you're right, I don't.
I
which
think
is
it's
the only
reconsider.
which is the only reason to rescind, to me, is the only reason to rescind or reconsider is if you've got enough to vote it in,
Right.
and
And quite
I'm not
frankly,
quite there yet.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's gonna fail at this point, so.
My only thought is that it might just give Brianna and everyone enough time to get more details on the,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Brendan has a comment, and I can respond.
I mean, is there possible to put restrictions on it? So, I mean, to your point, Bob, when you said like, why wait? It's so important to get a rental system program, especially since it's been active in other towns. So could you put it as, if an RFP is not produced in the first year and the fees for the management of the service doesn't exceed 25% and put two restrictions on it, at least get the ball rolling?
I'm not sure.
That's a contract.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a contract. I didn't know if you could do that or not. That's why I'm asking. Yeah,
There's
Might be
discussion
able to, but
later, you'll fully understand why I said that.
right.
I'd much rather us either let it, but give them an opportunity to put together something, and we would consider it for the fall meeting. I'd much rather go that route and give them time, but they have to do the work anyways.
I
to
understand.
get approved, because if they don't get a fall meeting, they're gonna be back next year.
So I'm not gonna put this on the floor. This is the consensus of
Yeah.
the board.
Because
Does everybody agree?
yeah, because
And that's-
to me, some of the information that I would want to see, just like what we ask on others, is, you know, how much is it going to be per unit, or what, you know, how many people are you expecting to, how many families are you expecting to be able to,
Right.
to assist with, you know, a $250,000 number or whatever.
That's all well and good. I'm looking, do we pull CH2?
I think we let it lie, and then if and when they have more details, they can come forward, and then we can reconsider and
Right.
take a
And
vote
if
at
they-
that point.
If there is a town meeting.
And put it on for a fall, if there's time for, if there is a fall. I
Okay,
suspect there's
so
gonna be a
if
fall.
they get the information, we could have a meeting the night before town meeting,
If they have the information, we could,
whenever.
well,
I'm
no,
just
we
saying,
can't.
we-
We
we-
can't the night before town meeting, because,
We've done it before.
no, because it's not gonna be, there's not gonna be an article. There wouldn't be time,
Oh,
it wouldn't be
that's
on a
right.
warrant.
Well,
I'm saying
the
it'd be a
article
fall.
got- Yeah, it would be the same thing. The article got changed.
No, absolutely not.
An article, though.
No, because there's no article. We haven't.
I got you, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, if they do, something in August, and we have time to get it on a November fall, but you're not gonna, there's no time,
Right, I'm
unless we
thinking,
voted now, to get it on a warrant.
Kelly,
Well, that's my question, is like, what deadline do we need to give them to come forward if we,
So to me, it's July or August, because the selectmen are putting together a fall town meeting,
Okay.
so a warrant for November would have to be probably done in September, I would guess, September, October.
But they would
Yeah.
have to be before
We
us
can-
before that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we can work on that. In terms of the application,
just
I
saying
can
there's
do
an
that when I
application
get
before
home,
us.
because I'll go to Lowfleet and change that to Harwich. The part that is I don't know, that quite frankly.
you're on tape, by the way.
I know. Well, because we've done that with, our application form. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We used, the guys going on the fire station. It's not that, and the other towns do that too, and other towns have offered their forms for me to do that. The part that I don't know quite how to get it without some broad assumptions until we actually go out is how many people would actually apply for the rental assistance. I could use some numbers and get some, but that's the more difficult data until you actually do it to get. We have a housing production plan that I could use as some guide.
Yeah.
Hold
I
on,
mean,
Kelly, go ahead.
so my question is, when do we think that Brianna's gonna be back? 'Cause since she's
She's back now 3 days.
Okay.
She's back now part-time.
Yeah, because then she's the applicant.
Right.
It'd be great to hear more from her directly about
Right.
like her plan, but also the recruitment plan, which was one of our questions
Right.
about how to reach
And-
more folks.
right. And of course, what I'm here doing is trying to get it going so when she gets back full-time, we can get the program up and going rather than wait another year. I don't want to lose this advantage of getting what we see as a necessary program due to her absenteeism, which is, well-founded, obviously. We all support that.
Well, I think a fall town meeting, you
Oh,
wouldn't be.
Bob, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just to answer the question of getting that information, the other towns are very good at saying what their experience is. So I'm sure Brianna could find out what the average draw is, and
Right.
stuff like that, so she
Yeah.
can come up with a formula of what she can do with 250,000.
Right.
So I'm sure that just takes.
We'll
research.
make our, yeah.
It just takes research.
Mary,
So I would think that if it's based on the fact that we've spent anticipated revenues this year, I would think it would be certified revenues that we would have to default back to. what's in our certified balance, because that's not what we've spent. So that being said, I would think the money would be readily available as opposed to not being available until the next fiscal year. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
We
that's a
couldn't
good
vote it,
point.
we'd be in a new fiscal year, so we wouldn't be able to still vote anticipated revenues. But we've kind of spent that money at this point, so it would be certified balances, which we haven't touched. So,
That's damn good.
just saying.
What year am I putting the certified balance? What year?
That might work even better for you.
At 23.
23.
That assumes you guys have.
So I
well,
think theoretically, if you got a vote at a November fall, I think you would, and assuming there's money available, then you would have money to spend immediately, once a contract was signed.
Well, okay.
So
Thanks
you
for-
got the
thanks for hearing-
consensus of the board.
Thanks for hearing me out, and we'll keep going. I just, housing's such a critical issue for us that we're trying to do everything we can to go forward. So, we'll see.
Okay, while you're there, do you want to have a chair for a few minutes? Because we're going to discuss something about the grant
You want-
agreement?
You want to do that now, and I can, before I sit down, and
Okay, we'll do it now. I met with two of the selectmen last night. We had an interesting discussion. I understand the argument.
Yeah.
And what the general consensus of the Board of Selectmen is that they're uncomfortable with the 3-year clawback. Not my term, someone else's at the boards. They're uncomfortable with that. It's a grant agreement. They have to sign it because in the end, they're the ones that they have control of the town finances. So, I offered to have a discussion with this board. I don't want to see the money for the trust held up for any reason. Would it be appropriate for the members of this board to, I don't want to say rescind, to review what we're doing with the language of that contract and eliminate the grant agreement for the trust only? Because our policy is a grant agreement from any external units, best way to put it. But do we have the ability to make an exception for the trust?
I'll give my 2 cents. I don't know that we have the authority to tell the trust how to spend the money. Their applications come through as flat funding for the trustees to spend the money as they see fit as fiduciaries to the trust.
Well, see,
So to me, that means
I understand.
our ability isn't necessarily the ability to claw back, it's the ability to say, we don't like how you spent the money the last time, so we're not gonna grant you more money in the future.
Well, we
And that-
have the ability to do that anyway, no matter what the
Right,
circumstances.
Right, and
So-
that's what I'm saying, I tend to not disagree that we might not have the authority to claw back money from the trust, because
me
of the
ask
way
you
the
this.
application is gone, the way the applications are written.
Let me ask you this question. They have to, the trust has to follow the CPC funding requirements, correct? So if that's the case, what's the
The
difference?
the trustees are fiduciaries of that money, and they have to spend the money based on the terms of the trust.
They still have to,
Yeah, Mary brings up an interesting point, because at least, I watched the meeting at the selectmen's, and I had some discussions before that with a couple of selectmen in there. As you state, I think the way this is going, there were 2 general themes. One was the concern about the 3-year part. But the one that's more interesting in tonight's discussion was, does the selectman have a right to interfere with the trust business, which means if they sign the grant, we're a semi-autonomous body with fiduciary responsibility. Why?
They're really signing on behalf of us and not the trust.
Okay,
They're signing on behalf of the
of the
town.
town.
but my
Right.
understanding is, it's
So
not necessary to have the selectmen sign
Well, that was a,
Agreement.
that was
They're the
a,
signing authority for the town.
No, hold on, go
no,
ahead.
that's the point the one selectman made to me, was they didn't think that the town needed to sign it because they weren't part of the the grant agreement. So he was objecting to that part of it in addition to the question. So,
So
and
I-
that's, as I understand, that's what, and maybe Dave has answered that. Third party, that seemed to be one of the questions they wanted the lawyers to sort out, whether we are basically a semi-autonomous sort of fiduciary responsibility. So we have that authority ourselves to sign without having the selectmen sign it as well.
So the selectmen don't sign on your behalf, they sign on our behalf.
Well, then
So,
that's
because you're a trust,
right.
so you're a separate legal entity, so to
Okay.
me, and I'm not town council, and I'm not rendering that opinion as town council, but, so
Well,
you can't
then-
rely on it, but to me, the selectmen are signing on our behalf, because we don't have contracting authority as a board of the town. The only contract, the only.
Is the Board of Selectmen.
Is the
She's
Board of
right.
Selectmen.
I
So
agree.
they're signing on our behalf.
Well, I'm not
We're
arguing with
signing
you,
as
I'm
a-
just saying that was an issue that came up, and
Yeah,
they
so
were
we're
gonna, and they were
signing as
gonna
a
sort it
department,
out.
right, so when I'm, in my past life, when they used to review city contracts, the department head would sign a contract, the chief procurement officer would sign the contract, the treasurer would sign that there was an appropriation available, the auditor would sign that there were monies encumbered, the mayor or whoever the contracting authority is would sign on behalf of the town as the contracting authority. Town administrator, board of, city council, mayor, whoever that person is, and town council would sign off as to form. To me, the CPC signature is the equivalent of the department signature saying that, yes, this contract says what we want to do, and the scope of work is what we're saying, what we've approved. Yes, we've agreed to approve a $500,000 grant to the trust, but the selectmen are signing on behalf of the town with the trust. So that's my 5 cents worth
Okay,
of
so
what that contract is.
I'm not arguing that point, I'm getting.
I'm not arguing that, I'm
Accepting.
assuming Mary's right.
Yeah,
My,
exactly right.
I'm not gonna argue, you're right. My question is, how we move forward?
Exactly right, and that's what I'm saying. That's my initial comment. How do can we just, for the trust itself?
I don't think we have a
They don't
choice.
have to have,
Yes, I don't think we have a choice in that regard. Because number one, we're not the one approving the contract. It's the selectmen. So if the
but we
selectmen.
still have a policy in place. We're gonna change the policy.
So we do have a policy in place. However, I think the nature of a grant to the trust is just fundamentally different in its nature, because you're giving a separate legal entity funding to do with as they please based on the requirements of the trust.
Right.
So they're fiduciaries of that money. They have to spend it appropriately and accordingly in accordance with the law and their trust documents.
Well, we took the leap of faith.
And I don't think
Hold on.
I just don't think
When
we have the
took the
right.
leap of faith,
Yeah?
we didn't know what we were. It's taken the last 2 years to come up with the idea that they were a fiduciary.
No, we always knew that they were a trust, David.
Well, not
Maybe
according
you
to
did,
some of the Board of Selectmen.
It was always a trust is always a separate legal entity.
Right.
It may be a town, it may be a quasi town agency, but it's still a separate legal entity.
All right, so to make the chair comfortable, can we change the policy just to exempt the
We can
trust?
change the contract, as far as I'm concerned, we can change the contract for the trust to say that we won't do a 3-year clawback with them. I mean, I have no problem with that because I don't think we can anyway, but
Okay, that's the
but they're
first,
different than everybody else, and I
Okay.
would just say that.
so that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, we can't sign the contract. Only the Board of Selectmen can.
So we can be a second signatory, but we don't bind the town.
Okay, so how do I get from A to B? Please explain to me.
Is the only concern of the selectmen the 3-year clawback? That's one I've heard, actually.
Well, I think you need a vote of the board.
Okay?
I mean,
So-
I don't think it hurts I won't say you need one. I'll say I don't think it hurts to have a vote of the board to say that the board is in agreement with not having a clawback provision on the funds that we approved last year and the way we've approved the funds this year, that it is a grant of funds for them to spend as they see fit. That was the whole purpose of setting up a trust, to do that.
So much for best practices. Is that a motion?
Sure.
Is there a second?
No, wait a
No.
minute.
We can second
Gotta say
the
it.
discussion. Is there a second?
Gotta say it again, I didn't get it.
Mary made the motion.
I didn't
I'm
get it.
asking for a second for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead, Bob. You have it.
So I just want to be clear, at this point, we're not changing our policy.
Correct.
We're just allowing on this specific contract to eliminate the 3-year.
And that's my belief because we have not signed a contract for last year either, correct? So, to me, the motion is as between a contract between the town, its commission, its Community Preservation Commission, and the trust, that it is agreeable to the CPC that we will not, that the contract does not have to allow for the CPC to rescind funds within 3 years. And from a practical standpoint, this is not part of the motion, from a practical,
I didn't get the motion, so it doesn't matter. That's what I said at the start.
What was the conflict? But Mary, what you're saying is that's going to be generally
it's gonna be a
our-
contract. It's
for
gonna
all
be-
contracts between us and you guys will be.
Yeah,
we'll-
the contract
we'll-
between you and the Board of
We'll avoid
Selectmen
the 3-year,
will not have a
clause in
3-year
there.
clawback.
good.
And from a practical standpoint, this board can choose not to fund money in the future if they don't think the money was spent.
Actually, because we come to you
Appropriately, right?
we come to you every year for funding.
Right, so I think that's where we still retain some semblance of,
Okay, so
Control.
before we clarify this, I want Emily?
I'm comfortable with that.
Kelly?
No questions or comments.
Okay, so
can't you have the motion?
can we,
No, I don't have the
I
motion.
don't blame
start
you,
again?
Ken.
We're
So
gonna
I-
get you a motion.
I'm so close, but I don't think I have what you were saying. Mary moved and seconded by Bob that
Exactly what you wrote.
a contract between
That a contract between the
CPC and
CPC
trust.
as a division, so say a contract between the
CP
town,
Town,
the Board of Selectmen, the town of Harwich, CPC as one of its commissions, and the Affordable Housing Trust, that the CPC agrees that the contract
agrees that the contract will not require the grant agreement to have a 3-year.
that the contract will not contain the provision that the Community Preservation Commission has
Can't you
the
just say
authority
you're going to
to
exclude that
rescind the
clause?
fund within 3 years.
Can, will, won't, what, won't have. the
Mary, could you
provision?
just simplify that and just say it's going to exclude that?
I'm sorry?
Can you just simplify that and say it's going to, for this interaction, it will exclude the 3-year contract? The 3-year
Well,
construct?
it's more that we won't rescind funding within the 3 years.
Right. I'm just saying you have that phrase as we're going to have to do
Right.
it in 3 years. Can't you just have your motion say you're going to exclude that phrase between the Housing Trust and CPC and simplify the
So
motion?
we can say that the CPC agrees to delete the contract provision
Every
that
single-
refers to rescission.
Yeah, perfect.
Name the years, 3
That's-
years.
Rescission within 3 years. Or rescission after 3 years. I forget.
Does that
hoping-
make you happy?
Well, it makes me happy. I mean, I was happy before, actually. When we signed it, we voted on it as a board, signed it, but I think from my understanding, this should make the select board respond to their primary question. And the other part, who has authority, that the lawyer, I think, I'm sure you're right, Mary, and I'm sure their lawyers come back and said the same thing, so that should go off, should come off the table, that
The only no,
discussion.
to me, it makes sense because it wasn't we're giving you basic funding. We're not, you're not telling us how you're spending it. We're giving you funding for you to spend how you see fit.
That's the whole purpose of
So,
the trust.
and that
yeah.
was the whole purpose of the trust in the first place. Now, that being said, if
And I
you,
understand all that. The one thing I'm hung up on is the CPC, the act itself says you have to, when the money goes to the trust, there's a number attached to it, what you can use the money for in support of what you're gonna do.
Right,
80%, 120, whatever the hell that number is.
yep.
So, if you have to follow that guideline, how is it, I'm not going there. I know
well,
I'm gonna
because
s-
you're not.
I know I'm gonna say it. I'm
No,
gonna
this, no,
blow
but
everything up.
no, this is how
I'm
you,
not gonna say it.
this is how you get there. This is closing the gap, David, because they're contractually bound in the trust. The trust is bound to spend the money the way the trust has been set up. So the trust has been set up as a 80%, right?
Yeah,
You're capital A affordable.
right.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So,
Well, just to clarify that, the idea is to be at 80% or less is get you on the shy list, right?
Right.
So we want to be, that's how we're going to be able to get our number to 10%. So that's why the 80% is an important mark to hit. But when I look through the CPA, if you look through how you can distribute funds, and when you get to the community housing portion, when you give it to a trust, I don't have all I usually have my cheat sheet with me, but I don't. But you'll see that we have to follow the rules, and it goes all the way back to how we're formed. So it just goes right back to how we're formed, and we have to
Yeah.
follow those rules and how we use the money.
because
Have you-
these trusts were developed to work with CPCs so that CPCs could funnel the funding to the trust so that the trust could deal with the
It's,
minutia
yeah.
without having to deal with town meetings every single time.
Right.
So that was
And-
it was
and-
intentionally designed that way.
And interestingly enough, on the fire station apartments we're building, there was a big discussion on percent of AMI and could they have two affordable and one not. And basically, we circled back to the CPC requirements and realized that decision had already been made because they'd taken CPC funds. And that moved us in, actually just stopped that discussion. So they're all three affordable now because they couldn't do it on our,
Right.
there are other complications how you split that off, but that, because we circled back to CPC requirements and that ended that debate.
The point of the 3-year clawback, David, isn't to make sure that they're spending the money in accordance with the act. It's for us, you're holding up money that somebody else can use. You haven't used it yet, so we're only giving you a 3-year time limit. It has nothing to do with them not spending it appropriately.
Understand.
So, in this circumstance, the trust is a legal being, it's a living being, no different than you or I, so it's gonna survive and continue to do its work until it's dissolved. And, I mean, if it was ever dissolved, then the funding would find its way back, but, you know, I don't think the 3 years is an issue on a trust.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Done deal.
Thank you. You know, just as a side comment, the 3-year, you know, I show my age, but my first, when the CPC started, I was on the committee, and of course, after a year or two, we were trying to call back money from, you've been here long enough to remember the Portuguese Club?
I remember that.
And it took us like 4 years to get, even though they had no sense of using it, to get the book straight to get that money back in. Now, you guys, and you know, actually the predecessor too, has corrected that. But I think this is a good motion because we don't want to be penalized for correcting your process. There was a reason for that, very dramatic, you know, visible reason some years back, but now you guys have the financial side under control, so, you know,
That's good to hear.
take your good acts, you know, take it seriously. Thank you for your time.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay,
And Mary, I think this is what we're saying that motion is.
All right, so let's talk about the warrant articles. Any questions about the descriptions? Questions, comments? Thank you, sir. Thank you both. None. Okay, moving on. Update on the signs. Kathy picked up the signs, the most recent set of signs, and we're gonna wait till the weather is a little bit better, not just 2 days of the week, of this week in particular. So, we'll get those out there. Update on the website.
No new news. Just waiting for the next phase of, I know they're going through the upgrade process, so once that happens, we'll dive in and get trained, but no new news there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for any board members about that? None? All right, update on social media.
Nothing major. Been working on some content for the 20th anniversary. I had a clarifying question, but if it can't be answered here because it's digging back to 2004, then I can dig further. But I saw that our project dates go back to 2004 and that there was a special town meeting to adopt CPC or CPA at the end of.
So we were all land bank communities before then.
Right.
And the state had a separate special act for Barnstable and Dukes counties for the Cape and Island communities to be able to opt into CPC, and opt into the CPA. So that couldn't happen any earlier than 2004. So that's why nothing goes back before 2004. And that's when we started paying off our land bank debt to switch
Right.
over to CPC
Yeah,
communities.
and was there a vote at that special town meeting which then brought it to the following May's
I can
town
send you that,
meeting?
I can send you the origins.
Generally, it's usually a fall town meeting
I
and then
just
a
didn't
ballot
want to make
question.
sure I wanted to make sure I didn't like misrepresent and say
No,
like there was an
I know in
initial
Yarmouth,
vote
we
from
had a special,
2004.
Yarmouth had a
Yeah.
special town meeting and a ballot question.
Yeah, so
So I
that'd be,
suspect
that'd be
Harwich
great,
would have
Jan,
as well.
So I can,
I'll forward it to you.
Yeah.
It's a whole
Yeah.
PDF on the vote and what was in the warrant and all of that.
I didn't know
Great.
you had that.
I kept
Yes,
counting
ma'am.
Kathy. I was like, Kathy, you must know it. And she found
yeah.
it.
But that's what I was thinking might be like interesting is kind of like diving back into the origins and sort of highlighting some of that to celebrate 20 years. And then looking at like total projects supported and like money that went to the projects and highlighting some of those projects. Having some features on total numbers of projects that that supported open space and highlighting some of those, total projects for historic, total for affordable housing support, and then a lot under recreation, but covering that like undesignated fund side as well.
20 years of funding will be staggering on the numbers.
I looked at it, I actually went through it, and
You had the numbers at one point.
Yeah, it's staggering when you look at the numbers.
yeah, it's like, I mean, what I did looking at it, because I wanted to represent how much funding went to projects versus like the big bulk and how much, so I removed, what was attributed to administrative funds and then land bank debt. So that came down to like a little over 170 projects, which was just like articles and stuff. I could get it down to like specifics, but I didn't feel like doing that. And then like over $22 million to fund those projects. So like that
I'd
was
say it
pretty.
around 24.
Let's say it was at least. I would have thought it was a little bit more.
I
Our
mean, when you-
3% have increased a lot in the last
Yeah,
10 years.
That's true.
Yeah,
you
when
know.
you add in the land bank funds, I think that's
Yeah.
like 35 million.
Yeah.
So everything else in there, but, yeah, pretty cool to dive into that and maybe like, I think sharing those numbers with the community of the impact of this fund and the impact on the community will be helpful for communications. any thoughts on that plan?
Sounds
I know
great to me.
Emily and I are working. I'm doing what I can, obviously, as a volunteer to work away at this too, but that was some thoughts.
It's not your full-time job?
Robert, questions? Sure. Okay. Emily?
No, good, and I can help,
Mary?
pull me in.
Oh, yeah, I sent you an email,
Thought
but I
so.
know, like, I'm only doing what I can as, yeah, right.
I think it sounds great.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? No? Moving on. Under other, I have some information for all of us. I have a document sent from Finance that I'm gonna forward out to all of you to take a look at. And it's the CPC financing up to date. They filed a C2 with Department of Revenue. So all the information's on that. I'll send it to you so you all have it.
You haven't sent that yet,
I don't want to
right?
put that on. I
No,
don't.
no, no,
Not
no.
yet.
This
Hold
is,
on.
what is this? I don't know what this was.
The next thing is, I had a discussion with with the two selectmen last night at their open house, open meeting, whatever you want to call it. And the board in general has discussed with the town administrator reducing the CPC funding by a percentile. And they're doing it to fund what they call the WIF. Do you have a better explanation? Because I'm fumbling all over it.
So WIF is it's a way to fund wastewater. So my only experience with it is what Yarmouth did, and Yarmouth actually didn't reduce the 3%, still have the 3%, but voted a kind of I forget how it was phrased, not really an abatement, but an offset.
Right.
They did an over-under with an offset, so certain parcels under a certain, both residential and commercial and industrial, under a certain dollar amount, received an offset that was almost equivalent to the percentage, the CPC percentage, so you would.
There was an offset.
So it was an offset, and there was an over-under number. I think at the time it was like a $1 million or $1 million assessment, and the over-under kind of made it revenue or tax neutral for a large portion of the town. So, but it's done specifically to support, to provide wastewater funding.
Well,
So, and it's pretty common.
I contacted Boston, I spoke to Stuart, and I'm gonna share with all of you, I'll send it out in the email form, it was sent to me. He lays out a couple of the towns, Sandwich, Barnstable, and then how they proceeded, and then he lays out Yarmouth, step by step what Yarmouth did. And the way Yarmouth did, if we follow that same construct, we will still get the $720,000 from the state every year.
You'll get so if you're not a 3% community, you don't get the full.
That's correct.
You don't get the full state reimbursement portion, which, and as we know, that fluctuates every year. So the way Yarmouth did it that way, so that we wouldn't lose the
3%.
full state funding.
Yeah,
So still an offset, still sending money into a WIF, still get the full state funding because you're still taxing at the 3%.
and just so you know, before, and then I'll go to you, Bob. I told you, both selectmen last night requested this document I have. I wanted to present it to the board first. Wanted all of you to have it, go through it, gather your thoughts, we'll have a discussion on it the next meeting. After that next meeting, I will send it to the Board of Selectmen, all 4 members, or 5 members, whatever the case is at that time. So, but I want this board to have that information first. Robin?
The question is, it's still, though, we
Mm-hmm.
lose 1% from CPA or the CPC.
Presumably.
That would be diverted to the WIF program. So it would reduce the amount of money we get.
So I think it does, I'm gonna say it must to some degree, but by maximizing your state funding, you're not
Well-
losing more.
Yeah, that's great that you can do that, but still, we're still gonna have less money for CPC.
You know, I think part of the thought process is too, though, if, you know, wastewater is integral to protecting some open space. So it kind of is still going to fund open space if it's going to protect open space if it's going to fund sewers, because.
And it's interesting because what you just said is exactly the way Boston framed it, exactly the way Stewart framed it.
Yeah.
They understand the need and what's happening on Cape Cod. They fully understand it. And this is a way to preserve the CPC in a different manner. Are we gonna lose something? Yes. But the problem with that is, we may lose a lot. So,
Do it a
Yeah,
different way.
I mean, if that's the threat to us. But the point is then, in theory, other than the minimum amount we set aside for open space under the logic that it's helping our open space, we don't have to fund open space other than our minimum requirement.
I think you never have to fund anything other than the
10%
minimum
is the
requirement.
10%, that
I know.
doesn't change.
But
I
here,
mean, I'm trying to
Justify,
justify,
I got
I'm
it.
trying to justify accepting that logic.
so in,
Means that we could then back off because the WIF is helping us with our open space, then we don't necessarily need to fund open space as much as we have in the past.
Would you
Just as
cons-
long
to
as
me,
we
I
do-
wouldn't go that far, because I think you're gonna see the applications that come forward, and there still might be a parcel of land that I think is really important for us to protect, regardless of the fact that sewer is getting funded through part of this 3%. But I still think I look at it as very similar to sending money to the Affordable Housing Trust to let them deal with housing, right? If we know some communities automatically dedicate all of their community housing money right to their trust.
Yeah.
And that's just what they do. And I kind of look at this as a hybrid of that. It's similar. I don't know, that 1% is certainly, it's not a full third of the money, but it's close. So, doesn't mean I'm not gonna vote for an open space project though, but, it would depend what's coming forward.
Question, when would this go into effect, and is it forever?
I don't know the answer to that, the second part of that, but the first part of it is, they're not gonna do it this run. They're not gonna do it this year. They're gonna do it next year. Now, that may be a fall, that may be a spring. I have no idea.
So just as an FYI, in Yarmouth, we voted it in special town meeting, fall of 2020. It was on our May 2021 ballot. And I don't think it was implemented for 2020. I think it was implemented in FY '23 is my thought.
Well, that's it.
Because if it was voted in May of '21, that was the end of fiscal '21, it may have been for the tax year starting in January of 2022. So your taxes are based on ownership on January 1st of each
Right.
year. So I think it would have been, that offset would have gone in for the tax bills that went out for January of 2022, which would have been fiscal '22.
It's interesting what Yarmouth did, because if I recall the discussion correctly, Sandwich, or I think it was Sandwich did it before, and they opted to do a straight 1%. And it was defeated. It was accepted, and then they tried to move the money somewhere else. And when that was on the floor of town meeting, that got defeated. and then it went to a ballot question. I don't know how all that worked out, I'm not recalling it correctly, but in the final analysis, it only won by 2 or 3 votes at town meeting, and it wasn't the ballot, it was the ballot box, but it was the military ballots, 3 of the military ballots that came in that changed them losing the CPC. If I'm recalling this correctly from what I was told. So, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Review the information, see what you come up with.
It was an attempt to make the,
That's why Yarmouth did what it did.
it was,
They learned the lesson.
well, the Yarmouth offset was an attempt to make the, the funding revenue neutral for the majority of the
The people and
Of
the
the
taxpayers.
taxpayers.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't revenue neutral for everybody, but it was this, there was an over-under number that was picked, and I forget what the percentage was, but it worked out to be around, I don't know, 1.1, your assessment was under, then it was revenue neutral, and if it was over, you still paid a little bit more, because of it, but not total, so.
Is it the Clear Water Act? Is that the name of it? The WIF?
The WIF?
Yeah.
I don't know what the WIF comes out of, but the Clean Water Act is
Oh,
a,
yeah.
is a federal statute.
That's a federal statute. Okay.
Is WIF just WIF?
No, it's
WIIF,
What?
W-
WIIF.
wastewater infrastructure,
Oh, she's got a,
funding, something or other.
Wastewater Infrastructure Investment Fund.
Thank you.
okay, there we go. All right, so we all have our lessons we're gonna review. Anything else? Anything you want on the next agenda?
When is our next meeting is my question.
Sorry.
It's all right, no problem.
What's that?
April
So It's
11th.
April 11.
Okay.
Any agenda, is that what y'all were gonna give me? Agendas?
Anybody want anything on the agenda?
Presumably articles will be done and printed by then.
Robert?
The only thing is an update from historic. Do we
Oh,
want to
yeah,
do that now?
sure.
Do you want to hear an
That-
update on our?
That's fine.
Okay, so, as I said the report last time, we did have a bidder that put in the proposal. And the issue was that the amount of money was excessive to what we think, it's gonna cost more to do all the properties, basically. So Megan and I kind of broke it up, that if we at least do all the properties in Harwich Center and Harwich Port, we will have enough funding to reach the 34.5. The 34.5 was the amount approved, and that would cost us 33.8 to do those properties. But it does mean that we would, that we would be coming back possibly at a later time to finish the rest of the communities, or the communities. The villages, I should call
So
them.
we're talking about the entire 7 villages, you're only gonna do,
Two. Which
But
are
that too is still a
But
bulk.
that's the most, because the total bid would have been 50,000, so it's, we're still getting 2/3 of the
Okay.
account. Because the other, like Pleasant Lake has maybe 5 or 6 and stuff like that.
It's, the majority of the clusters are in Harwich Port and Harwich
Okay,
Center.
Yeah,
Then that
that's
makes
the
So
key,
that's-
that's the key
right.
ones, and those
So
are
that
the
was the
ones that
reason.
we have been.
But we did talk about wanting to just flag that for the board, just so that there was no surprise at the end
I
of
was
the
just
day.
looking at economy of scale, that's all.
Yeah.
So, well, that's, any comments from any of the board members? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, folks.